Well, welcome to our final episode of season 1 of C.A.R.s, Coffee and Christ, and this is the roundtable discussion of our company here at Cross Automotive Royale, based out in the Tulsa Metroplex area. Ross Turner here to host this 10th episode of our first season. And in this episode, we're going to kind of take a look back at the year. We're going to take a look forward into next year and talk a little bit about resolutions, as it is kind of our New Year's episode this time around. So we're going to start with a year in Rewind. We've got our owners with us, Joshua and Abigail King. We've got Ray Lawson, our business manager, with us today, and also we've got Chris LaFond, who works as one of our techs here as well. And excited to have all of you with us this morning. Very cold morning here in Mounds, Oklahoma. So thanks for joining us. So first question is kind of a big one. It's really looking back into the year of kind of the origins of our company, the startup, all the work that's gone into getting us kind of set up to do the business and the benevolence of the company. And I thought I would just ask what might be some highlights and what might be some challenges that we experienced to the year that you all would like to share. So kind of looking at the year in Rewind, who would like to kind of get us going this morning? As you look back to 2025, what sticks out?
I'll kind of give a summary of the then to now, right? When we look at like a year ago this time, we were a garage startup, like most companies do, start in your garage and start growing out from there. And we were really trying to figure out who we were going to be, right? Like we had a lot of ideas, but we really hadn't zoned in on, what were we going to do? What were we going to be? And the Lord pressed on us at the beginning of 2025, that this would be a year of promises. And there was a lot of thoughts around, even this company was God's idea. And so, seeing that and following it out and following through on it, you're walking on faith every step of the way in a startup type of experience. And just God told you to build an ark, and you're just looking at the idea, and you're like, well, I don't see the water, and I need to build this thing. And you're just walking with the Lord. Sometimes feels like I don't fully understand, but I trust you. And God spent a lot of years in Abby and myself learning how to hear from him and knowing and trusting that voice, even, if it costs us our lives, like we trust that voice to that level, his voice. And so we, pursued it, and it kept growing. We knew we needed to start with something. So we began getting a couple of off-road vehicles because it was winter at the time, and that's why we got the Cardinal and the Deuce, and began working on those vehicles and starting restoration. We're like, well, at least we can build, right? And so we'll spend this time building as we're, trying to find a home. And we really wanted to find a physical location soon. I mean, we were looking back in January at a physical location. Yeah. And it was almost like the whole market dried up. I was like, does Tulsa not have any industrial buildings for rent? And at the time they did. There was nothing that really suited what we wanted to do for a very long time. And we looked at a lot of really wrong places, and eventually, found we found a place we thought was right. But then, even then, the Lord moved us. Yeah. And what happened is it was a shift sometime around July of the year. And as we began, we just trusted him with those shifts, and a new place opened up that was just perfect. The Lord had told us that the place would be welcome there. It would suit our needs, and we could afford it. And with that, all those things presented themselves with an awesome believer that's our landlord that is just awesome here, and put us in great hands in a place that was already serving the Lord. And then he started introducing us to real talent, right? Ray entered our family, and I think I remember after our first conversation, Ray was everything I didn't know I needed about business, and just helped us really begin to establish the business versus the dream. I think we kind of transitioned from one to the other when Ray entered the scene and helped us really know what we were doing. And then we began building out our family and our technicians, and, Chris and others joined our family at that point where we began really building it out. Right after that, Ross, is when things shifted in your life and had a whole transition to join in and made this opportunity to be able to do benevolence. And with that, the Lord said, unless we begin at the beginning with that in mind, it will not be that. You can't convert a really successful multi-million-dollar organization into that later without a lot of pain and it being really hard. Now, I've known great businesses even here in town that have done that, but it took an overhaul. It was really hard. But if it's in the seed at the beginning, it'll become part of the tree, right? And so that I'm so glad that has begun and has begun being very, very fruitful in relationships and our ability to help. Even today, we're going to do our first car care clinic, which I'm super stoked about, which is us just helping a local individual in need through the churches. And it's our first formal request from a church for someone who needs something in a vehicle. And so praise God for that. And we're kind of really, I feel like, finding our stride and starting to get into what I would call, efficiency mode, where we can really do what I was hoping to do, which is lowering that barrier to entry to exceptional vehicles for people, whether that barrier to entry is time, whether that entry is money, whether that entry is, just fear of the unknown, whatever we can do to help with that. And it is a fulfilled promise. It just, we want it in a moment, and all of a sudden, I was expecting really a jackpot moment where you hit it big and something happens. But the Lord is more like a crock pot. I mean, it's a slow and steady cook that helps us get to something that's really exceptional. And so that's kind of been my perspective on the year. It's really been the formation of C.A.R. It's been the structure of its DNA and its bones and the beginnings of this baby that we are building together. And I've seen the Lord move every single time, in places that we need. He's provided for what we're doing. He has brought us incredible people. I look around and I'm like, how are we even lucky enough to have these people do what we're doing? Exceptional talent, exceptional people. And I'm just really excited to see what God does next. I mean, I feel like this season was really a fulfillment of a promise. And then the next season, we'll see what the Lord does next.
So that's great, Josh. Thanks for giving us kind of your perspective on the highlight and kind of the way it's kind of worked from inception to this. Anyone else, kind of your view of the year review, whether it's with highlights or challenges or both, and just how it's kind of got off the ground and where we are right now, and some exciting things for the future, I think, too. But it's just good to keep looking back and kind of seeing where we've come from. Anyone else want to jump in?
The other owner perception?
Always good to have, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think on a personal level, it's definitely been a year of stretching for me and a year of learning. Going from being out of the workforce for many years and jumping into it and graduating from a master's program and then going into operations of this business, having to learn new things and stretch those muscles that I haven't stretched for a while, because I was in the corporate world before we got married. I worked since I was 15, 16. But to have that break, you get a little rusty, So, just kind of switching gears and being able to learn and a lot of leaning on the Lord, a lot of trusting in Him and trusting that what He has given us and the dreams that He's given us, being able to trust in Him to provide in those areas, not just how we normally think of provision and finances, but also trusting in providing the right staff, trusting in providing the right location, trusting in providing for the paperwork to go through in certain areas, like the logistical side of that, and just seeing time after time after time, like how he has come through, and in most times exceeding any of our expectations. So it's definitely been a year of being able to see how faithful God is, and that, just adding to the list of ways that, I trusted him then, so I can trust him now, and being able to be like, okay, I'm in an area of, am I having trouble in trusting God right now? Am I having trouble having faith right now? Okay, well, can I just look back at just this year and look at all the ways? Okay, well, then this right now, this obstacle that I have right now in this moment, maybe I shouldn't be as worried, because look at God's track record.
Yeah. So. That's great, Abby. And I think you bring up a really good point. And, as a pastor and someone who spends a lot of time in that kind of mode of thinking through, hey, how do we trust God? It's amazing how much God just says you need to remember what I've done. Through the whole Bible. And we're not typically people that want to really look back. We want to look at the moment, maybe look forward sometimes. Maybe we'll live in the past but not remember what God's done. So there's a lot of remembrance that God tells us to do, not just with the rituals he gives us to remember, but also reminds us of what he's done. And that's a big key, I think, when it comes to knowing how to move forward with God. Yeah. So I think it's really good that you say that, because I think without remembering what he's done, we kind of are unsteady about the future, or we kind of start to create our own plans without God. Right? And we're going to do this, and we forget that we're leaving him behind there. So I think that's really, really good to hear that. And just from my own perspective, it's been a really refreshing year for me coming here and serving with you all. I've been in ministry, unpaid and paid, for 20 years. And, there's just not been a lot of refreshing times in ministry when you're doing it as a job, because people look at you as just some kind of corporate entity instead of really like spiritually guiding them and whatnot. So this has been a real refreshing time for my life, seeing people that actually are putting their money where their mouth is and doing everything for the kingdom and serving the Lord with abandon, instead of having this kind of string attached because they want your preaching to build a new wing of their church or something. It is kind of funny, but it's kind of true. And so like actually wanting to do God's work instead of making it into just some business entity. So it's just really wonderful seeing the way this company works and how we are trusting the Lord with these things, both in the highs and the lows, and doing that kind of work. So it's just, for me, it's been a very refreshing 2025, seeing how God's using you all and getting to do that with you. It's been really fun and a real blessing to me. So I just counted 2025 as a lot of joy in my life personally as well. Well, anyone else? Year in rewind for Ray or Chris? Like, you guys don't have to add a lot, but want to give you space to share if you do want to share.
Well, it's been a year of revelation for me. The Lord has revealed a lot about a lot of things, including myself this year.
Yeah.
Early in the year, He revealed to me that the place I was working at was not where He wanted me to be. So obviously, it was a big step to leave where I was. And then as I was transitioning from there to wherever I was going to be, He revealed to me that, hey, you're not listening to me, so I'm just going to show you exactly where I'm going to nudge you. I'm going to back. I call it a smack in the back of the head, because I was being really stubborn at the time. Yeah. And so He's like, okay, I'm going to reveal to you that this is where I want you to be, whether you want to be there or not, in your own mind. And then obviously it was revealed to me that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then throughout, the journey of being here, I mean, we've had our highs, we've had our lows, we've had our difficulties. We've been through a lot as a work family and as brothers and sisters in Christ. But the thing that He's revealed to me as well is that as He's molding me and taking me and turning me into the person that He wants me to be and laying out His plan, and He's teaching me and revealing to me exactly what you said, is how to lean on Him and how to trust Him.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, they go through life and they believe in God, but they have a doubt. They're not really trusting 100%. They're not, believing all the way. There's frustrations, there's different things that go along with just life. And He's revealed to me each time that whenever I'm going through each one of those chapters, that I need to look at His Word. So what I've found myself doing, so whenever I get frustrated, I go and I look and I'm like, okay, what does the Bible say about frustration? What does the Bible say about offense? What does the Bible say about pride? What does the Bible say about any of the emotions that we have as human beings? The Bible gives us an outline of how we handle those things and what we should do with them. And what I've found is, and I've always known it, but I've never really been completely active with it. But what I've always known it is what I've really found out is that every single one of them, you take them and you lay them at His feet, you give them to Him, and He handles them. I mean, obviously He gives you things that you have to do in the process, but He handles them. He pulls you through it, and you end up exactly where He wants you to be.
It's fantastic. Yeah, I think that's a challenge we all face. Like seeing, okay, these are the challenges I face, these are the challenges I have. What do I do with them? I think most of us would say, well, I gotta figure out what to do with this.
Right.
In the Bible, it's really comforting to say, cast your cares upon God. It says, throw them back to Him, give them to Him. He cares about you, and I think that's a hard thing to know how to give that up, give that over. But that's a comforting thing when we start to do it regularly, saying, thank you for letting me participate in this. I'm going to give it back to you and see how you're going to work. And you'll put me in the position, you'll change my attitudes, or you'll help me out in that situation. And that God wants to show us that He's real. And He does when we actively trust Him, So that's fantastic, right? It's good to hear the stories from this year and a little bit of just a rewind there, because again, there's just a lot of things that have gone on, and it's good to remember God's faithfulness in the highs and the lows. He is the steady presence, and He is the living God, and He walks with us and He leads us, which brings us to the next year. And He is leading us somewhere. We know ultimately where He's leading us, but in the meantime, there are these other destinations He has for our company and for us personally. And I thought it'd be good for us to just kind of dream a little bit about that, and also kind of say, hey, I think the Lord is directing us here, for 2026. So now let's take a look forward, and where do we believe God's leading us as a company or personally in this journey with Him? And I'd love for us to share a few of those dreams or hopes that God's put on our hearts for the next year. Who would like to start us out on that?
I'd like
Chris,
I'd like to jump in, but I just want to go backwards one second.
That's fine.
Just because I jumped in a little late. Because I'm a new hire. I think this marks about a month I've been here. Maybe something like that, 5 weeks.
Yeah.
You guys were still kind of laying out the floor plan when I walked in, and we were still putting equipment together. I didn't get to see the building, the day you guys got the keys. I can only imagine the rehab that's taken place. It's easy to tell that, a lot of love and effort has gone into making this place a good foundation for what your dreams basically are for the company. I'm excited to be able to come in and help execute, and get the ball kind of rolling. It's been a little bit of a slow start, but we're picking up pace fast. On a personal level, I'm a new Christian, so I'm not able to I'm not able to use scripture, so I just kind of have to speak from the heart. I had a stroke, last summer. You guys all know, the listeners don't know. So, I found my faith in that crisis. Faith is my word of the year. It's in every hour of my life. So I fully believe, 100% faith's brought me here with you, with all of you. It's brought me to this location. It brought me to Ray. As soon as I started speaking with Ray about, what he was doing here and the mission and the vision, I just knew I had to go. And it's been a great experience, mind-blowing experience, just refreshing. I'm sorry I can't really speak about the whole year because I'm so new here, but I'm excited to help execute the vision, and I'm looking forward to 2026.
Yeah,
I guess I'll start that back.
That's fantastic,
that
Chris.
back to you.
That's great. Thanks so much for sharing that, Chris. That's really encouraging to hear your journey too. I love that you said the word is faith for you, and I think again it's a living trust. As we say here, the Bible, when it says faith, means trust. It means leaning on, relying upon, not just intellectually acknowledging. Saying I acknowledge your existence. That's God's not blessed with that, right? It's I'm leaning upon you. I'm trusting you, and it then reveals itself by a path that's created from that. Like you're saying, I was excited to hear that, and I'm getting to know a little more about you, and I'm excited to get to know you more in this year too. So, well, who wants to start us off on 2026 dreams and hopes?
I'll give a broad, vision kind of sits in my camp. But we're kind of in a stage where we just opened our doors. We're starting to entertain and talk to clients that are, speaking about their dreams, which is really cool and exciting. And I think we talked about that on the last episode, is like getting to hear what people's dreams are is really confirming a lot of what we had hoped we'd be able to bring out again in people, which is this dream maybe they had as a kid that they wanted for a vehicle, and they've held their whole life hoping for it. And some people save up their whole life for that moment to be able to be a part of something or to share something. Like, I got into cars with my dad building an old 78 Corvette. That is where it began for me, and being able to like replicate that for so many others in my life was not something that was in my plan. It was in Jesus's plan. It was not my plan. And he brought that in and through, and I'm starting to see that we're going to be able to then share and do that with others, including my own family. I mean, I'll do that with my son when he comes of age. And now I've got a place for us to do that, to go forward. And so as I look at us opening our doors, I think we're really kind of giving it back into God's hands again. But because, when I was talking to him about this, he's like, oh yeah, don't worry about the customers. I'll bring the customers. And that was that. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's your job. And so my job is to build it, and he'll bring the rain, and so that is kind of where we're excitedly waiting and anticipating what the Lord does in this phase. And, one thing that the Lord has done really well is prune down to what's important. And I've seen him do that. He is, the Father is this gardener that prunes us down to the essentials of what is true and what is needed. I describe the company sometimes in the form of a V8 engine. And right now we're in the initial one cylinder where we're going to focus in on the custom business, the building up of really great vehicles, show the world what we can do at some upcoming shows. And that's that one cylinder, just getting the team operating as a machine, as a top, whatever, as a great engine that's just tuned really well and all working together. We're kind of in that phase where we're building to great efficiency. And but there was all these other cylinders that the Lord has given me, and so as soon as we're ready, and as soon as the Lord blesses, and this one cylinder engine works well, we'll add another cylinder, and we'll get all those cylinders firing as a business. And so I'm not worried about where we're headed as far as, it's just the timing and when is he going to do that and how is it going to happen? How is it going to unfold? Yeah. If I would have written the script for 2025, it did not outplay the way I would have thought, right? My plan continually gets set to the side, and I have to take on his plan over and over again, and it ends up being much better. And you look back on it and you're like, well, yeah, that's great. That's the way to do it. But you don't know that at the beginning of the year. So where the difference from last year and this year is, I think I was more planning and making and trying to execute my plan. And I think for this year, I just kind of want to see what Jesus does. Yeah. Does that make sense? And I kind of want to take what he's giving me and try to steward it better and live in a little more trust than I did last year, where I was, I think, picking up the maybe, it's kind of like you're in a room and there's only one piece of chalk and there's a chalkboard, and I kept grabbing the chalk to tell everybody what needed to be done. Yeah. And I feel like Jesus is the one who's really the one who's the teacher. And so I really just kind of maybe need to sit and watch and learn in this phase what the Lord does next. And we've seen that time and time again. I can't even tell you how many stories are like supernatural encounters with customers or people or resources or blessing or talent, and the Lord is doing it, and he is at work. And so I want to submit more to that, because I want him to build this house. And I think, there's a lot of cool things we could do, but there's only a few things we should do. And I think getting more in tune with that is, I think, the challenge of a business leader building a company with the Lord. I've built a lot of business over the years for other companies, for money, for profit, for all that. I'm more interested in building for the kingdom. I'm more interested in doing it his way, which is exciting and new for me, because I've never done that. So I'm excitedly learning and anticipating.
That's awesome, Josh, and really excited to hear kind of where you're aligning yourself, like you said, from last year to this year, and just kind of, like you said, kind of focusing on the should, the must. There's kind of a common adage in preaching ministry, which I'm a part of, is that there's a lot of things you can say, there's a lot of things you could say, and there's a few things you must say, and that's what good preaching does. There's all sorts of things you could say that are relevant, but there's a few things you've got to say every time you preach, because thus saith the Lord. You got to learn how to lock in with that. And I think that just sounds like what you're saying there to me, and that's exciting, because I think, again, believers, you've been crafted for certain purposes. Yeah. We're not carbon copies of each other. There's certain things God called you, not Billy Graham, to do, which is really exciting if you think about that. Yeah. He doesn't want another Billy Graham. He wants a Joshua King and Abigail King to do that work. So to me, that's super exciting to hear how you're focusing in with the Lord on that, and say, hey, these are the must-haves we've got to do this year. And also just being more open to, like I said, it's challenging with God, but it's like, I'm going to commit these plans to God, and we're going to see how he puts it together. That's exciting. I think that shows a lot of trust and a lot of just walking with God instead of kind of anxious with the Lord. There's some real powerful things you said there, brother. It's encouraging to hear that.
I mean, it's almost like he gave me this analogy one time of how he operates and how I'm supposed to operate. Yeah. Abby and I went on I think it was a big anniversary trip down to Mexico, and took it was our first time ever doing deep sea fishing, and we had a charter, and he taught me a lot on that trip. But one of the things that stuck out the most was how the captain and the first mate operated. Now, you'd watch the first mate, and this guy was never stopped moving. I mean, he was redoing bait, moving. He was working 4 lines at one time. The knowledge that was there was really, obviously he was skilled. He knew a lot about the conditions that were going on, the type of bait for what they were, where they were in the water, but he had no control over where the ship would go. And the captain was up on another level, kind of separated with a higher view, and always in control and moving the boat to where it belongs, right? And the Lord described to me how we're supposed to work with the Lord through that metaphor, is that you're not to grab the wheel. Yeah. Right? You're not to grab the wheel. You need to trust me to bring you to good waters. You need to trust me to make the big, shifting, constant decisions on where the actual fish are, so that you are successful in your job, which is the work. Right? Like that guy was not sitting back. He was working the whole time, and it was exhausting to watch, and to create an opportunity for someone to have an experience, which me at the time was a customer. And I see the same thing for our customers is like, we're going to be working hard, and we have been. It's probably been some of the hardest work of our lives. But that experience that was created when I caught my first fish, which at the time was like a 48-inch barracuda. Wow. My first fish I ever caught in deep sea fishing. Wow. And the Lord made it a great one, right? And it was, I think it's like 4 inches shy of the world record. Wow. It was a big fight. And then I had to work, but the reality I saw was that first mate was always in tune with the captain, making suggestions, asking for things, and getting feedback so that they could do their job better. And I feel like settling into that role, you accept this is going to be work. Yeah. We're now used to that, I think. But now it's this relay, and it's also that first mate not going up. And I think at the beginning of the year, I was up trying to give advice to God about how to drive that boat. And I should have been spending my time just, going off of his cues, following his lead, and doing the work necessary to get things done, and to set up an experience that was necessary for our customers. And I think that's a better way of thinking of that trust. They had worked together for years, just as I have worked with the Lord for years. I've seen him do more miracles in business than I have seen him do in a church. I know he can do this, and I know he will do this. And so in trusting those years of relationship, you've learned those rhythms. I just, it's different, I think, sometimes when you're doing ministry, because to me, it's more important. It's more important than making money. It's like what we're doing. And so you tend to put everything you have on that plate, and you need to just trust him with the wheel. Right. And I think that shift of all the things has kind of put me into the bottom layer to work the lines and to get down to just brass tacks of what we got to do, and that is really, really, I think, actually more comforting to be in a seat like that, where you just know the work and you can do the work, than it is to have to worry about getting to good waters and making all the big decisions, which you just leave to the Lord. Yeah.
That's great, Josh. Anyone else? Just kind of hopes and dreams. We also talked a little about maybe some resolutions. There's any resolutions you feel like we want to make, or you want to make as well for 2026. So again, kind of feel free to share, pivot, add to what Josh shared too. I've got a few of my own, but I'd love for someone else to share first, and I can kind of wrap us up with maybe my thoughts. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm not real big on resolutions, but something I was thinking about that I would enjoy doing over this next year is spending more time in the shop, learning things. I would love to spend time in the booth with you, Chris. And just seeing what goes into paint and body, and just learning, spending more time in the bay, learning what different tools are. And because when I worked on my Jeep a couple years ago, I really enjoyed it. All the work I had my hands on, and I just really enjoyed the whole process. And so I think spending more time doing that, getting to know that side of the business, not just the paperwork side.
Jumping into these other parts and kind of tactilely kind of getting engaged with the business and the flow of the work.
I'll piggyback on that. Originally, when the Lord told me to build my truck, it was to heal my heart. I was so burnt out on corporate. I was, in this, I would say a really good example of a midlife crisis, and he said, I just need you to build that truck. I thought I was financially irresponsible at the time. I was all these things, the reasons why I shouldn't do it. I got out there, and the surprising side effect was it healed my heart. Joy returned to me. I feel like I laugh and with my kids more, and I joke with my kids more now. I just became more lighthearted doing things with my hands. It was because because I did so much on a computer and in my mind that it was like my soul needed work, like hard work on vehicles. And then in building this, I've just been so much on the business side of it. I'd like to just get back out there, get back out there with the guys as well, and just really build some stuff, like build a passion project with them that I really love and I can have my hands all over, again. So I think that's also something I want to do. That's
good
really
resolution. Good. Yeah, what I love how you described how when you were doing that initially, how it just felt really financially responsible. It's so interesting. That's exactly how the Pharisees saw the woman giving all those gifts to Jesus.
Yeah,
and just so what a waste. And that's really what following the Lord looks like for a lot of people. What a waste! How irresponsible! Why would you tithe your money? Well, it looks like worship to God. It looks like love to Him. So I think what you're doing there is you're showing not just obedience, but relationship, that He gets to get closer to you, and like I said, heal your heart and those things. So there's a thing where it looks foolish in some ways to people, but yet it's really something God uses.
And it had one thing the Lord told me. So Jesus told me directly. I was like, well, so what was this about? And I said, well, about the financially irresponsible thing. And he goes, your heart is always worth investing.
Yeah.
Your heart is always worth investing in. And He needed to revive my heart before I could do something like this.
Oh, yeah.
And if my heart hadn't been revived, I don't think I would have had it in me to even pursue something like that. And the Lord knew that, and He knew exactly what I needed, but I didn't know what I needed. And it really unlocked a part of my childhood that I had set away in what I call the box of, that's not going to be profitable. I'm not going to do that. And the music was in that box, and then He unlocked that years ago. And I was like, man, why did I do that? And now I've got a rich part of my life that is part around music. And then it was, now it's been this thing I did love when I was a boy, which was around cars. And so that has just been revived in me. And like Jesus said, it was like, it's always worth investing in your own heart. It's one of those things that He wouldn't even put a price on, so.
That's great to hear both of you say, hey, we want to get more back to those things this year, even though, the work of the business, the paperwork, always important. But, that's not heart work as much, and so you want to get back to cultivating your heart and being a part of the entirety of what God is doing here. And I think that's exciting to hear that. And I think that's something that, I'm sure all of us love hearing too, because it's fun to do it all together and be involved with all that together. Well, Ray, Chris, anything you all want to add to hopes and dreams for 2026 or resolutions, whether you make them or not? Good opportunity to share maybe one of them as well as we wrap up today.
Well, it's kind of funny that Chris had talked about his word for last year was faith, but the root of that word is trust.
Yeah.
And there's been many times that I've sat around and I've thought about, man, where are we going to go with car? What's car going to be? What kind of adventures are we going to go down? And I've had my own visions of where I think we should take the business and where what I think we should do, and it was kind of even revealed to me even last night. It's kind of funny that we're having the podcast today and these are the questions you're asking. I say it's funny. It's it's not ironic. There's a reason. We all know that the Lord works on us in every opportunity, and so my New Year's resolution, my main one, is that faith, trust. And that goes with, me ultimately trusting the Lord and where His plan is going to take us. Ultimately trusting Joshua and Abby as owners of the company and respecting, where they want to take the company, and trust they're making good decisions on our behalf and on behalf of the company. I've got to have that moving forward, because I've always been, and it's kind of funny, you touched on something as well. I've always been that guy steering the ship when I've been in business. I've always been an operations manager. I've always been a general manager. I've always been a person that is putting people in places, making things happen, so forth and so on. But I've never been in a faith-driven business before, a faith-based business. I've never been in one. So I've got to learn to trust and give that control ultimately to the Lord.
Yeah.
And then obviously, Joshua and Abby are stewards of the Lord, and He's put them in the position they're in for a reason. Yeah. And I've got to trust that He's going to put in their mind the right decisions to make for the company as well.
Yeah.
And then my other New Year's resolution is that I want to be shorter because we're going to build some really cool cars. And I want to be able to fit in them. And I'm going to trust in the Lord that He's going to make that happen.
Never know.
Or we could figure out how to make the firewall move out a little bit.
Or maybe
or put a little bucket maybe there and move the brake cylinder.
Yeah. Maybe we trust that He'll give us a way to build bigger cars
that looks small.
That looks small.
It'll work out.
Yeah, the second line, the second cylinder should be that Willy Wonka machine.
Yeah.
That would put the thing and he shrunk the kid down a little bit.
Yeah.
Not this big.
Not so
just
small. Yeah.
Maybe 10 inches.
Yeah.
That's it.
I love that resolution. Some of them sound like they're very possible. Others are fantastical. So it's great. I love that, Ray, and that's encouraging to hear. I mean, I totally get what you're saying. I think we're taught from a young age to try to take control of our lives, and we're taught in business. I've never seen a course on followership in my life. It's a course on how to be the best leader. Right. But to be a Christian, you have to learn to be a follower. You have to learn to follow the one who really is leading. Only one person can steer the boat. Only one person can drive a car. So it's just it takes a lot of practice of doing that in life, and in some sense, as a Christian, everything you're doing is ministry in some sense. So it does just take those kind of, hey, I'm at this crossroads. I've got to trust God with that, and it's good to hear those things and to say those things out loud. Because we're saying, God, I trust you more than I trust me, right? And I know that you can steer it. Well, let me just do the work of the deckhand or the first mate or whatever, and make sure I do that really, really well. You can trust me with that, right? But that's a good thing to see. Hey, I want you to steer the ship. I know that you've got the direction and you've got the map, but it takes a lot of work because I think everything else pushes against that. Saying Jesus should be the one serving me and where I'm directing, and that's something he will not give up the steering work, but he wants us to recognize that. I think it's really good, Ray. It's encouraging. Well, we'll wrap this up, with I'll just share a couple things myself, and not a lot of resolutions or anything, but just working into the new year. It's exciting as the chaplain to see our company just more and more. I think not just lean on the Lord, but I think just speak about why and how we're leaning on the Lord, whether it's personal conversations with me, whether it's text messages or phone calls, one-on-ones together. It's exciting to see that we are seeing them less compartmentalized, in my view, and more integrated in how we do things. And that's really exciting because I think it's just very easy to see benevolence as some compartment that we do once in a while, instead of just who we are as people and as a company. And I think even faith leaders that have come and I've talked to, they still don't quite understand that. And I would say to them, hey, money is a means of what we use, not the goal of our lives. And the same is true of them. Churches can be more about money than that. It's easy to devolve in that. So I just think continue to commit ourselves to the original plan is a good thing. It sounds like to me that God has set us up for a certain way, for a certain reason, and seeded us in a certain way to grow a certain way. So I would just say, let's continue to commit ourselves to that roadmap, because I think that's kind of how God's put us together to do our work in our ministry, and that integration is a really good thing. And I see it growing a lot here. And I think God is putting the right people in place to do the work and having the right heart to do the work too. Jesus chose his disciples intentionally. They didn't just kind of suddenly pop up. He went out and found them, So it's exciting to see how God's put us together to do this work. And I just pray that it's going to feel that, hey, 1 week we're helping this family. We're also building a custom vehicle for this family. We're also doing something to help a teammate. Like that should feel like a normal week, that should feel different. And it's a good thing because no one else is doing things like that very much. So it's exciting to me. And it's exciting to be a part of this. So I just really appreciate everyone being a part of this. podcast today. Thanks for coming early, cold day, drinking some coffee together, having a roundtable discussion about last year and this year. And it's going to be exciting to start season 2 in January and seeing where God directs our conversations as well. So until then, we'll sign off.
All right.